Good evening, chat. Hello, guys. How you doing? Sorry, still had the game uniform on. We had a long day today, so uh, yeah, you're just gonna have to suffer wearing the suspenders and everything. So, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday night. Once again, guys, my name is Sean, also known as Potentially Criminal. I'm an attorney in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and tonight we have another guest. Earlier this week, over the weekend, we talked to Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks, and I think tonight we've got we have a journalist, and this one, she's been involved. I'd say Turtleboy's the tip of the spear as far as things go, and she's right there with him on this, and she's been at the forefront. And this is a name, you guys were mentioning all the time when we were talking about stuff, saying, "Oh, Jess Machado says this, Jess Machado said that," and reading her Twitter, and we're going along learning things. So that is who we're talking to tonight. Jess Machado, she is a award-winning journalist, an independent journalist in the Massachusetts area, covering everything, most notably for you guys, Karen Reed. But she's been covering all kinds of stuff throughout her career. If you guys want to support her, she has a Substack, the Jess Machado Show. You guys can find her there. And she's actually, guys, remember, we talked about this. She's the one who started speaking with Paula, juror number 11. She started kind of getting that all rolling. And yeah, we're going to get into this right now. So, guys, please say welcome to Jess. Hi, Jess. How are you?
Hi, attorney. How are you?
I'm doing great. So thank you for being here.
Of course.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that though, like you and Turtleboy, at least just from my experience and from following the first trial through the lull into the second one and now afterwards, I mean, I really do think you and Turtleboy were kind of like the tip of the spear as far as things were concerned, as far as the information that was making their way out to us that was really helping us figure out what was going on, not only with the jurors and what was going on in the camps, but more importantly, just really in court. Because other than that, it was like John DePetro was like the only other person who, and that was, yeah. I guess I'll just ask you real quick, is he senile or something?
So fun fact. Yeah, so John actually has been like a public radio personality for decades in Rhode Island, which down here in southeastern Massachusetts, I'm pretty close to. So I was a fan of his growing up, I guess. I mean, I'm not much younger than him, but I was a fan. He leans conservative, he leans right. And so, I was always kind of watching his work. I was actually a guest on his show for an article that I had written maybe 5 years ago, but that was my basic interaction with him. He popped up on the scene during the Karen Reed trial, and last time towards the end, and it was very easy to see he was anti-Karen Reed supporters. And, sometimes personalities come out amongst the press pool, and his definitely showed. And he's an antagonist for sure. And you feed into him and he loves it. And I think, honestly, he's at the peak of his notoriety right now because of Aiden and Turtleboy, rather, and the Karen Reed trial. I think it's all downhill from here. But yeah, unfortunately, my problem with him, attorney, was that his reporting was just not accurate. I mean, I would be sitting in the same courtroom observing the exact same things that he was, and what he put on his screen and what I put on mine were sometimes totally different things. Is very frustrating. So yeah, I mean, if that was your sole source of information during the Karen Reed trial, it was a big disservice to the viewer.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the most interesting thing. Just the amount of, you could watch I could read what your tweets and his tweets, or Turtleboy tweets and his tweets, and I was like, which trial did you happen to watch? Because I didn't see that. I didn't see any of the things there. Now, is he a contrarian? Because I can't believe he really went as hard as he did into the paint here, unless is Kate Peter giving him money too or something? Because I can't see why he did this.
Well, like I said, he leans right. And, many conservatives were talking about the corruption with the Democratic leadership in Canton and in Norfolk County. So I think if you take out the names and the people here, this is something that I think John probably would have aligned closer with me and with Turtleboy. But, perhaps, listen, Court TV needed someone to have the opposite point of view, and John DePetro filled that role, whether in his head or in his heart, he feels the way that he speaks.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's ever going to know, but like I said, this is really great publicity for him. He really got his name out there, was getting more views than he had been getting for years. So,
I bet.
yeah, it was a good spot for him to be in.
Yeah, no, I guess, yeah, it's the idea that everybody, in wrestling, you need to have your heel, and I guess he played the role very well.
Yes.
But that was the one thing I did notice with the Karen Reed trial, because I've been covering stuff for a while now. Like there was the Kyle Rittenhouse, Alec Baldwin, Ahmaud Arbery. A lot of these trials end up kind of breaking down along political lines. This one was a little different for me, at least, because there were a lot of people on the right who were pro Karen Reed. And there were a lot of people on the left who were pro Karen Reed. I mean, like Mike Crawford's a great example of that. And then, I mean, I remember, dealing with some of these people, and people were calling me Antifa, and I'm like, I'm like the farthest thing you could be from Antifa. I'm like, no. And I was really impressed to see that people were willing to look at this and give it an honest look, and that this could transcend, the idea of justice was transcending, what team people were rooting for. And it really looked like it on the ground too, that people were actually genuine about that.
Well, I think this case was so extraordinary, and the charges and then the investigation and all of the subsequent, testimony and kind of the characters involved were just so extraordinary and so sometimes unbelievable that you're right. It definitely crossed party lines. I mean, for someone like myself, I cover, political, races here and campaigns. And obviously, as a conservative, I have a certain base of followers. Obtaining a whole new group of followers because of the Karen Reed coverage was I thought a challenge because I still do my regular work. However, I think people just say there's either right or there's wrong. You know what I mean? And in this instance, you knew that this was wrong. Charging her was wrong. These corrupt cops, they were wrong. And so I think for all of us, again, party didn't matter. We were united. And Mike Crawford, interestingly enough, again, leans left, and myself, I lean right. And during campaign season 2 years ago, he interviewed a friend of mine who's a conservative, Anthony Amore. He was running for statewide office as treasurer, as a Republican. And I remember watching that interview, and Mike gave him a hell of an interview. It was really, really great. So I think like those of us who are kind of in this independent journalism, we understand that, the story is what matters. The truth is what matters. And, as long as we do that, the people will stick around and follow us.
And I think I'm happy to hear that. And I think that's some of the things Mike mentioned as well, that it's really nice that you guys were you did your thing and people wanted to flock to it. You weren't out there trying to push it. You just put your work out there and people responded to it. And I know that's got to be the best feeling of all. And I know there's some other questions. I guess we're kind of jumping into a different spot here. But with I guess I'll call them the institutional press, the ABC, NBC, the Boston, the papers out there. Was there a lot of, until we got to the end, they were very, I mean, did they treat you guys differently until they realized, oh my gosh, these are the people who the jurors are talking to them, not to us. You can get a quote from the attorneys. You can go, Karen Reed had that party and, you and Turtleboy were there, not, the guys from, the local newspaper. I mean, was that something? Have they realized that that's there's a bit of a shift nowadays, or have they not figured that out yet, do you think?
Well, I definitely think it started during the last trial. Aiden himself obviously has blazed the path for independent journalism. We're coming off of, some mainstream media issues, like, for example, the Joe Biden, Hunter Biden laptop story, which, many people thought was true, but mainstream media suppressed that prior to the election. So listen, I think people overall were very suspicious and skeptical over mainstream media coming into the first trial. For us as independent journalists, a very different scenario than mainstream media. We had to fight and scrape our way to get into that courtroom. And I can give you two examples. The first, when we had to wait in line last year to get actually into the courtroom, there was a press line outside. So people like myself and Aiden, we would have to stay outside overnight, sit in a chair for long hours. Eventually we had fans that actually offered to do it for us and would take shifts overnight, where mainstream media would pay guys $30, $40 an hour just to sit in the chairs and sleep, while their reporters actually were at their hotel rooms, getting a good night's rest. So that's one example. The other is, getting a media credential just to get into the courtroom. NBC, these people don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, they have multiples, whether it's NBC, whether it's Channel 10 Boston, whether it's Dateline, they're all under that umbrella of like Universal and NBC, where people like me, a Substack was one of the first times they've ever had to actually look at that as a platform where I did my reporting. And they've denied me multiple times. And I had to really make a case for it and say, I'm writing, people are reading, I have subscribers, I'm earning a modest living off of this. I mean, we had to scrape just for access to get into the courtroom. So do I think my peers in the press box, always treated me with respect, with the exception of John DePietro and say Gretchen Voss? Yes, I thought that I've built some great relationships with some of these people. But to your point, Juror 11 reached out to me after I kind of put this blanket statement out there where I was looking to speak with any juror. And she shared with me that her family followed some of my work during the trial, and they liked the way that I spoke of her. And my reporting was very intimate as opposed to mainstream media. They're just typing facts. It's real generic vanilla stuff. And so, believe it or not, it was my finesse and my style of reporting what I was seeing is what won over, Juror 11, and I got that exclusive interview with her.
And kind of going back to the press credential thing, especially for you, if you're an independent journalist, where if you had been working for, I've watched some of your appearances since the trial was over, and I think a couple before. You had been on, you had worked for a newspaper or two before, and
Yes.
it's just merely the fact that you could say, yeah, I work at this building. Yeah, these people hired me. All of a sudden, now you are the journalist. It's like, what is that? All it takes is like I just have to get hired somewhere, and I think that is truly obnoxious. I think that's truly obnoxious that that's their standard is somebody's willing to give you a paycheck, not that I go out and make my own paycheck, and that should be
not
enough.
Not only that, attorney, but I mean, the work that I do, a lot of it is investigative journalism, where I, submit a lot of public records requests. I'm actually on the ground. Sometimes mainstream media, people like me do the heavy lifting. And as long as they, see what I write and then maybe submit their own public records requests afterwards, they can report on that as if it's their own story. So, breaking some stories statewide is an accomplishment of mine. But, grunt journalists like myself and Aiden, we do the very heavy lifting, and I'm not really sure there are reporters in mainstream media that are doing that. Maybe they want to do that, and I've heard some of them say they wish they had the freedom to do what we do, but they are owned and bought by these mainstream media companies. They cannot give their opinions. It is essentially they're told what to report on, where, I wake up every day, get leads from people, I'm a trusted source protector, and people will give me leads, and I get to take my time and develop them and go where these reporters don't necessarily get to go, or they don't have the budgets for. And so, yeah, it's a really unique opportunity. I think people love it. People find it refreshing. As long as I tell the truth and bring the receipts, my readers are happy.
To say it does seem like that, because I'd say people do definitely really appreciate your opinions and what you've done so far here, at least, especially. Now, here, let's see. I guess going into, kind of starting from the beginning, how did you come into the Kieran Reed, the whole story of Kieran Reed? Like when you first heard about it, you're just hearing, oh, this lady ran over her boyfriend in the snow, and like, how did it start for you?
Well, obviously, I live in Massachusetts. It was on my news. I remember I was sitting in the living room and the story came. I'm a newsy girl anyway. So, I love news. I'm always, seeking out news stories, and it's how I was raised. I love it. So I remember the news. It popped up on the news. And there was a video of her going into the court or into a building in handcuffs. And my first thought was, she's too pretty to have killed anybody. It caught my eye, but I definitely didn't think twice about it. I saw it just like everybody else. I'm a follower of Turtleboy. I was actually a feature of one of his stories in 2020, believe it or not. And we kind of built I would say, a camaraderie a little bit, talking through that 2020 story. And, I started reading his work. I mean, the way that he started to develop these stories and give us information, his writing style, I really identify with. It's crisp, it's to the point, it's conversational, it's very easy to digest. And so I was reading the Canton Confidential or whatever Canton, story. I forgot what he called it, but I think the first one I saw was number 3. I picked up on the third one. And then I set the reminders on my phone, and anytime one published, I went right to it and I was hooked. I mean, just from some of the things that he was telling people and the story in itself. And so from there, obviously I followed. But my main jump into this, which was pre the first trial, was I was actually covering Aiden's legal issues surrounding this that were adjacent to it. So he had gone to jail. And I reached out to him or his attorney when he was actually in jail. Nobody had interviewed him. I thought it was pretty peculiar that here's this guy.
Are you serious?
Yeah, nobody had interviewed him.
Not even the press, just to go rub it in, really? Wow.
I mean, they did some moderate coverage of it, but for us, first of all, his website changed. He wasn't there. So that was the first thing, the absence of him. I had been following this along anyway, but so I was working for another publication at the time, a very small veteran-owned Fall River Reporter. And I remember it was my Monday meeting and my boss is like, what do you got? And I was like, I think I'm going to try to interview Turtleboy. And he was like, okay, go ahead with that. And so I reached out to his attorney and said, listen, I have some questions. I would love to write them and send them to you, or how does this work? I didn't know he was in jail. And his attorney, Tim Bradle, reached back out to me. I couldn't believe it. And he said he talked to Aiden and he would be happy to talk to you. So I provided a bunch of questions, sent them to the attorney, took some time until he actually went there. And then I eventually got an email with the responses. And then I talked to Aiden almost every day after that from jail. He would call me and talk about just life, what was going on, how he got there. And I was all in at that point. I fully believed that he had been, sent to jail wrongfully. It was a manipulation of the system. I believed the ex-girlfriend or whatever she was, the fake victim, she cultivated this whole thing to get him put behind bars so he could no longer report on the Karen Read trial. And I had my own foray with local corruption. And so I was all in. So we started talking during that time and I started following his cases. I went to Dedham District Court, which is right across the street from Norfolk Superior. I was there for, I think a bail hearing. I was doing that, but also following the Karen Read thing. And I believe they both go hand in hand. And so I started covering. There was a guy there that was reporting, live tweeting from there. And I was watching his tweets. And again, same situation as John DePietro, wasn't lining up with what was actually happening. And at that point, he was the only person that was reporting at that time. And I felt an obligation to Aiden's followers to get it right. And so I became very competitive and wanted to be in the courtroom every day. I mean, I'm driving an hour and a half up there whenever there's a hearing and making sure that if there's this other person was there that was tweeting, I was going to be on the side of him, giving the real story. And that's actually how it started. So yeah, and I never looked back.
No, I mean, that's impressive. Just wanting to go an hour and a half just to not only support him, but just to make sure this guy there who's, not doing justice to it, and you're just making sure that the record is correct. I mean, that's a lot of dedication there. Have you? And I don't know. I mean, I'm aware of the corruption in the Boston area and the Massachusetts area. A lot of us have seen The Departed. We know the MSP is pretty crooked. Did you end up have people try these scumbags and these turds that float around in this cesspool? Have they tried to bump up against you and say hey, watch out or anything like that? Or have they tried to insinuate things to you at all?
No. No, I mean, there's definitely with the publicity and then, accelerating viewership, there are some really crazy people out there that, believe Karen Read is guilty.
Well,
I did have stalker that was it wasn't just me, it wasn't exclusive to me. It seemed any outspoken woman who was supporting Karen Read last summer, they were getting the brunt of it as well. But this guy sent things to my home. He was sending delivery food items. One night I had 4 different Chinese food deliveries show up at my house at the same time at 10:30 at night, all with orders that they wanted me to take and pay. I had the Quran sent to my home. I had subscriptions to magazines in other people's names sent to my home. So unfortunately, I had to get a restraining order against 2 different people. Both were successful. One of those individuals is in jail currently. And the other one I had, my restraining order extended for a year that offers some protection. But as far as corruption, police, and things like that, I always felt like they wouldn't, because I would just write about that. My boss from my old publication used to say, listen, if you put in a records request and they don't give you what you want, that's the story, that they wouldn't give you the records request. So I always find an angle with something to say, like, okay, well, if this is going to happen, there's a story there too. I know none of us are really truly protected, but so far, knock on wood, I've had no problems with anybody. Again, I report facts. So I'm not sure how people can dispute fact telling and just taking what you see and just pushing it out for people to consume. So far, so good, nothing. And we made it through 2 trials with really no issue. Never even got pulled over by the police once on my way to and from court.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened.
No, not yet.
I mean, because I will say these guys are not, they're corrupt, but they are not smart, and they're not very good at being corrupt. So I'm surprised that they were smart enough not to, I mean, I don't think they were bad enough to say, like, they'd stop you and, you'd be like, what's wrong, officer? And he's like, your tail light. But I'm surprised they weren't, I'm surprised they didn't try to hassle you guys. I mean, they went out and screwed with those protesters. And, people in, the buffer zone, which is really amorphous. And then they would just start arresting people. They were willing to screw around with some people, it looks like, I guess, but just they realized, I think you were probably too hard a target then.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is, it's not all of them, it's just a few. And, my mantra is, justice takes a long time. My own experience, it's not swift. You have to stay at it. And listen, that buffer zone, did they have their moments where they got to really enforce it and really push people back and be real jerks about it? Absolutely. But you know what? Those same police officers had to stand in front of the courthouse when the buffer zone was appealed and lifted. And these people now, got to stand right in front. They got to scream in jubilation after the verdict. These same officers had to kind of eat crow and have to deal with it. So you know what? Again, justice is slow. Everything that goes around comes around, and everybody gets their day. So, and it's not all cops, believe me. I mean, I have police officers in my family. I'm sure you agree, but there some people here that really kind of took it too far. Of course. I think the first trial was worse than the second, though, when it comes to that, to be honest with you. I thought it was a little bit more copacetic round 2. And,
really?
Yeah, I do. I mean, listen, the thing here is, as far as Karen Read supporters go, they're very obedient. They never wanted to cause problems for Karen, for themselves, or for anybody else. So if they were told to go somewhere, they did it. They abide by every single rule and restriction that was put upon them. I was there every day. I never saw, the only people I ever saw that were a problem were from the other side of things. So not necessarily John O'Keefe's family, but these other people that, again, were antagonizing. Yes. So yeah, I mean, there's hundreds, thousands of people at this point that I've encountered or met during this whole 2 trial process. And for the most part, I can't even think of one off the top of my head that was a real problem. None, actually.
No, that's the one thing I will say, other than the police, the buffer zone issues, I never saw any problems with the pro Karen side of things. It was really the anti Karens. And I know, because I'm familiar with Kate Peter, through other things.
I was going to say her name, but I didn't know if you knew who she was.
Oh, no, I know Kate Peter. I actually, it's funny. I know Kate Peter because about when I first started doing this, there was a sovereign citizen running around named Chili DeCastro. And Kate Peter Oh, you're familiar with Chili a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that was when he came up to Massachusetts and Kate confronted him, and then she ran away like a little girl crying about it, and he
Yes.
tried to get a protection order against her. And that's when I
Yes.
learned about, Kate. I learned about
Okay.
Turtleboy. So that's
Okay.
why, yeah. So I kind of know, my knowledge of this predates a lot of people's and how it all happens. So
Yeah, I'll say so. Yeah, I was gonna say Kate Peter and all those, but I was like,
yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure what he knows. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
yes, 100%.
Yeah, so I mean
Yeah.
those were all fun there. And this is something where I can tell that they, especially Peter and a couple of them, with the standard signs, they've got their shirts. I mean, clearly they are paid opposition. Going forward, I mean, like the Sandra Birchmore case is going to be going forward. I know it's going to be a little harder for them to screw around with a federal court case, but for like
Right.
Brian Walshy,
Yeah.
do you see them being employed and deployed in that should we get to the point where he goes to trial? Or do you see Morrissey kind of using him as a rent-a-mob for anything else high profile coming down the road?
Well, I mean, I do see some passion kind of going towards the Sandra Birchmore case. Some of the same people have the same interest in justice. It also has some of the same players involved, some of the same police officers involved. The Brian Walsh case, I can't see you're going to see any passion behind that. I'm not really sure. There's the Clancy case in Massachusetts with the mother that killed her 3 children. I don't think you're going to see that kind of passion from supporters or the other side. The Birchmore thing, I'm not really sure. I mean, I think it's pretty clear cut what happened there. I think it's very obvious that this guy killed her. So I can't see. I mean, this Karen Read trial, or both of them, was just so unique, so egregious, so unbelievably wrong that, how many times did I say or hear people say to me, this could be me, this could be my mother, my sister, my daughter. So many people thought that this could have happened to them, and that inspired passion. I believe Karen's a very likable personality. I've spoken with her many times, but like, I think her care for her fans is genuine, and it's once in a lifetime you're going to find a person like that, and the personality and the circumstances. So do I think we'll see the same things? No. I mean, I'll be covering the Birchmore case, I'll be covering the Walsh case, and the Clancy case, but I don't think we're ever going to see anything like the Karen Read case.
And I guess I guess when you think about it, it's kind of good we don't have another thing like the Karen Read case again. Somebody else getting jammed up like this, but also just the amount of people who were just taking joy and cheering and clapping and just so eager to see. Oh, and this is one of the things I had a problem with the anti side of this. You're taking joy in the idea that this woman might get locked in a box for the rest of her life. It's like, do you really care that John O'Keefe's going to get justice? No, you don't like the fact that Turtleboy and Karen like each other, and I know you don't like Turtleboy, and just seeing all these people, and it was, just what this was going to lead to.
Well, I think for them, the most important thing was to ensure Karen Read was found guilty of murder, so that the real murderer would never be held accountable. Again, I mean, this wasn't just about, Karen. This is about, there's someone who committed this, or multiple people that committed this murder, and, pursuing Karen's guilt, number one, distracted from that. And then number two, hopefully with a guilty verdict, would mean that nobody else would ever be, looked at or pursued. So, you've got juror number one, right? Your foreman, who is asking for an open investigation. And, that is part of why they did not want her to walk away, because, okay, if Karen Read didn't do it, then who did? So yes, about the family wanting closure. And I again, this is a very sad situation for the O'Keefe family overall, with the loss of 2 children. And it's terrible. However, that has nothing to do with Karen Read. What this has to do with is that, John O'Keefe was murdered, and the person or persons who did that are still free.
Yeah, no, I will say, I thought it was like, I didn't, when juror one, when the foreman was on, I think it was Today or Good Morning America, whichever one of those, on national TV, and was like, we need to reopen this. The real killers are out there still. And I was just like, wow, I'm surprised they didn't cut him off. I'm surprised they didn't do anything about that. I mean, and I will say that was getting into the jurors, that was the most surprising thing for me. I thought a lot of them were going to be like the one lady who said, well, I just don't think they proved it. No, I mean, of the couple that we've heard from so far, it's no, this was entirely wrong. They went after the wrong person. They had the wrong person. And this was something I had been telling my chat because, I do trials, and the idea of, going back to the Karen Reed was framed thing, I just didn't think that's a hard one to sell to a jury that, I can go out there and say, look, you guys agree this person, you're not putting them, they're not the best person in the world. I'm not asking you to say they are, but the police, and the prosecutor, they're kicking a field goal. Either they make it or they don't. And a lot of juries can buy that and they'll accept that. Did they did they do their job or not? But getting these jurors to say, no, not only did they not do their job, they clearly, there's a guilty person running around on the streets right now. I was taken aback that they were, even less evidence was presented this time than the last time to show that. And they bought it, so they bought it. I was just so surprised they bought it. I mean, I was happily surprised to hear they bought it. I didn't think they were going to. I thought the simple road of you can't say what happened. Maybe he got drunk and fell down and died. Hey, that's an easy one. Drunk people fall down and die all the time. Easy story. Jury would buy it. I was so shocked that they not only said, okay, yeah, I could see that. They truly think that's what's happened. Were you surprised that they were that adamant about it at the end of the day when the ones you've talked to?
So, I was at jury selection every day for this trial. I missed a couple of days during trial 1, but I really was invested in this jury selection process. I watched everybody who walked in. I was really paying attention. And I got to know a little bit more about the process. And at the end of the day, I was really pleased with the jury that they selected. I found them to be much more attentive than the previous jurors. There seemed to be some distractions during the last jury that, I'm not sure how much that played a part in it. But was it surprising, first of all, that they were speaking out? Absolutely. I mean, I put that out there last year for the last, thing and said, hey, if a juror wants to reach out to me, I got no bites on that. This time around, I got 4 bites. I'm still talking to some jurors who are thinking about coming forward. Ideally, what I'd love to do is present those same 20 questions to each juror and see how they all respond. The same questions I gave to juror 11. But what I really love is that they're willing to talk. I think the other thing too is, last time around, it wasn't cohesive. There was a lot of disagreements. And again, hung jury, I don't think people felt confident about anything that happened in that jury deliberation room last time. This time around, everybody is confident. They were confident in their decision. They were confident in how they reasoned it. And,
Yes,
from hearing from juror 1, I think I can't remember the other one. And then there's been, I think we've heard from 4 or 5 total so far. Everybody's really confident. And so that then lends to, if we're all confident, let's all talk about it. I think it's super important to hear from these jurors for the memorialization of this trial and future cases. Was I surprised they bought into it? I loved watching them. They loved paying attention. They were really into it. Were there moments where they were more into it than others? Absolutely. But, aside from one juror who I called uninterested juror because she always looked a little uninterested. She was pregnant, by the way, so maybe she was a little distracted. Yeah. I just found everybody really paid attention. And, this was a different trial. It was much more succinct. I think they got rid of all of the extra stuff and really focused in on the one thing here, which is there was no collision. And we've heard that regurgitated by some of these jurors. So it resonated with them, obviously. There just was no collision. So we didn't hear it that clearly last time. So the defense obviously had some benefits to their game this time around, learned from the last time. I definitely thought that Hank Brennan was a far more apt, prosecutor than Lally. Lally I called him lackluster Lally. He just had no oomph to him. But look, I mean, Lally at least got some people to think that she did
Yeah.
it. Hank didn't get anybody. So I don't know. I mean, as an observer, I think it was great to see the jurors pay attention. I love hearing them talk post verdict. And I don't think it's one bit surprising that they bought into it and the buy-in was there for them. I think the defense laid it all out really, really, really well.
Okay. And I guess I'll just ask you, I mean, now in hindsight, sure, you might be able to say this, but when they left for deliberations, were you pretty confident for Karen? Based on watching them and seeing how they were reacting?
Well, we can never know. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and that's why I love talking to these jurors. The juror number 11, I did see her make some faces throughout this trial. So for me, I was pretty confident that she was going to be a not guilty verdict. And
Okay.
from what I've seen and heard, yes, some of these jurors who I definitely observed making facial expressions and shaking their heads in disagreement with certain things that would mean Karen were not guilty. Yes. We didn't know who the deliberating jurors were going to be, obviously, until the day they started. So, there were a couple people that I originally wondered if they made it on, how was that going to go? Like note taker juror, for example, he filled 5 notebooks. I mean, he never stopped writing. And I looked at that and I'm going, is that a good thing or a bad thing? From what I'm hearing, he actually was going to be a not guilty vote, but we couldn't have figured that out. I personally, having been to both trials, I truly believed the evidence was there this time around. The jurors looked like they were focused, taking it serious, and ready to work. I did not believe there was any type of jury tampering or anything going on right from the get. Unlike last year, we lost a juror on the first day of deliberations under a circumstance which we now hear is like related to a personal relationship with, cops involved. And, so and that woman was a not guilty. And so my faith in the system was not stable after that. I was pretty devastated on that day. I couldn't believe a juror who we had watched for the whole first trial roll her eyes, shake her head, body language showing us that she believed Karen Read was innocent, got removed on the day of. I mean, had she been on that jury, who knows what she could have done or swayed individuals. And I've met her several times. She's a very outspoken, confident woman. Who knows what she could have done? So
she could have 12 angry men the first time around. Yeah.
Right.
No, I do agree. I think Karen got the opportunity to have a fair trial. It was clearly stolen from her the first time around. And I will say, I don't know, at least from my watching it, Karen Read basically got acquitted in spite of Judge Cannone, not due to Judge Cannone being a good judge, being a good neutral, referee and an arbitrator. No, it was in spite of what she did. And I'm still struggling to figure out why she did what she did. I was in the middle of right at the beginning of May, I actually had a trial myself, and the judge that was in there, because we were sitting there, there was some downtime, the prosecutor and I were sitting there with the judge talking, and the Karen Read thing came up and said he had been watching it because his daughter had been sending him some clips. And he says he doesn't understand, he's like, I've been an attorney 45 years. He's like, I've been a judge for, 15. I don't understand why she's doing what she's doing. And it was really, that's yeah, I mean, the way she did all of that, I think she tried her hardest to make it difficult. Thankfully it didn't succeed this time around. Especially the way she picked the foreman and did all that, and she took the 2 jurors that were like, what was that whole thing about? Were they giggling or talking, or what was the problem with them exactly?
I'm not actually sure.
Okay.
But listen, I really tried very hard to give Judge Cannone the benefit of the doubt during the first trial. It felt wrong at times how she acted. It felt wrong to see her exasperated, expressions and sighs. But I really tried to just give her to the benefit of the doubt. I have a lot of respect for judges. So, I really was like, no way. This time around, while I didn't express it while I was covering the case, again, post trial here, I mean, it's extraordinary. We're hearing from jurors themselves that are saying that, the sustains and the objections and all those things clearly favored the Commonwealth. These are regular lay people and jurors that are picking up on that. So I think our instincts were right. I mean, but listen, judges have so much freedom within the parameters of these cases for their personalities to show up. And you're talking to a girl who lives in Bristol County, where we just recently had a judge, that was, involved in some sort of like, I'm not going to get, I'll send it to you. How about that? But like,
okay.
Listen, judges aren't perfect. They are human. And, unfortunately, for whatever her motivation is, we saw a lot of favoritism in this trial again. But you're right. She was, found not guilty in spite of all of that.
Yes. And I don't know if you know if you've asked the jurors this. I also know you have like this group chat where some of them are talking right now.
Yeah.
When it came to that question, I kind of realized when they got to that whole thing about the DUI question, if we convict her of this, what happens? That's when I realized, I was driving around, I was going to court, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, she's Karen's walking, because I love how they did it, where it's like, they're like, so hypothetically, say we were going to acquit her of everything else, what happens? Were they, I know they were distrustful of Hank. A lot of them were. I know the foreman was very distrustful of Hank. Were they distrustful, and I don't know if you've asked this, were they distrustful of the court by that point too? Like, is Bev gonna pull a fast one on us as well? Were they worried that aside from Karen, everybody else was not playing them straight?
I haven't heard that specifically. I have heard multiple times this slip for them was not easy to read or to understand. It required a lot of care and being very organized and methodical to go through that. If you remember, they originally asked a question about some clarity on that, and the judge was like, listen, you've got all the information you have. She didn't offer them anything extra. I've only been talking to a few, so I don't want to put them out there, but there may be some resentment towards the judge for not offering some additional clarity for them. Whether they, to your point of what you're saying, I'm not sure it was a distrust issue, but they're tasked with a job here. It should be easier for them, I think, is the point. A little bit more clear. Obviously, last year we had this confusion with the jury slip. We saw this year the defense was fighting for more clarification, and she gave a little bit there, but still not enough. For me and for other attorneys I've spoken to, and for other people who have watched these cases, if there is on a juror slip guilty, there needs to be a not guilty for the corresponding charge. And this did not have that. Again, it start at the top and work your way down. It's confusing for me, and that means it's confusing for the jurors. So again, I'm not saying they thought they couldn't trust her. It was just, why isn't this easier for us? We're working here. We've been taken from our home and our jobs. Could you help us out a little bit? You know what I mean?
No, I agree. And that's when I saw it, I was going over it with people. It just 5 little lines, just right next to each line, just 2 sets of lines, and that would have taken care of it. And I think it's funny, Alan Jackson, Yannetti, and Alessi were like, look, this is not going to work. And Bev's like, oh, it's okay. The appeals courts love me. Everything's fine. And then by the time it comes back, she's like, well, shit, I guess you guys were right. They really don't get it. And then she's like, okay, well, I'll kind of halfway fix it. And then she still didn't do it the right way. And it was very frustrating to see, but I understand that, because it's one thing for all of us to sit here and read a jury instruction. Like, we're all into it. Even though you're not an attorney, I understand, but you're into this. You understand what's going on here. Remember, these guys don't know anything that's going on. They've been sitting here for 40 some days dealing with this. They understand this is a huge thing. Even though they don't know how big it is, they know it's out there. They know the press, everything that's going on. And now everybody's scrutinizing them, and they want to make sure they get it right. It doesn't take much. There have been times with just a jury instruction, they come back and say, we didn't understand what you meant. We're stuck on this part. They're stuck on one word. And we've had to sit there and say, okay, maybe we have to fix it. But sometimes it's, you're on your own, but it's never been that that blasé attitude of Bev where she's like, you guys are fine. Don't worry about it. Which I can't believe she did that, where it's like, don't worry, you'll figure it out. And it's like, no, that's not how this should happen. And I was really, I thought it was hilarious when it came back, but it was also scaring me, because I was like, well, God, these guys really are confused. But
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too, attorney, and and I'm sure, many of your
Yeah.
viewers know, how are judges made into judges?
Well, and
I
that's
mean,
well, it depends where you're at. It depends on where you're at. I mean, here in Ohio, for example, you run for office and you get, you become a judge. But I know in Massachusetts, you get appointed by the governor. So,
correct. And I mean, it's a political appointment. And,
mhm,
I always, again, as a political, reporter and investigative
mhm,
journalist, I pay attention to politics and politicians. And, you know, I try to tell everybody this starts at the top. This is about how people are elected at the ballot. Those people must be trustworthy individuals and they have jobs to do. Your district attorney, Michael Morrissey has one of the largest campaign coffers of any other DA in the state. He has over $600,000, I think, or close to it.
yeah,
A district attorney down here in my area, they've got 1/3 of that. So there's a lot of money, there's a lot of politics, and ultimately that plays a part in our courts in Massachusetts. And
mhm,
some people are pushing for judges to run for these seats, just like you're talking there. I mean, here we also have like lesser courts where they're appointed by governor's council. I've seen a governor's council have a drink in his hand and pick up a phone and say, okay, fine, yes, and hang up the phone and go. And that's how judges are appointed in Massachusetts. I mean, and that person
yeah,
literally himself got elected at the ballot. So elections matter. I tell everybody time and time again, Norfolk County
mhm.
has a very unique opportunity. Michael Morrissey is up for election next year. They have a very unique opportunity to send a message that the corruption in that county needs to stop and not elect Michael Morrissey for another term.
Yes, and this is something I try to, I try to really talk about when I do my stuff here. When you pick your district attorney or your county prosecutor, Commonwealth prosecutor, whatever you want to call them, you get to make a very unique decision as a voter. If you can pick the guy, you're shaping policy in a lot of ways. You're picking a guy and saying, I want you, this guy says he's going to prosecute X, Y, and Z versus A, B, and C, or how he's going to do it. So you're not necessarily making the law, but you're choosing how the law is enforced, who's going to prosecute it, under what circumstances, which is more important, I would argue, than the law itself. Because if they agree this law is wrong or it shouldn't be applied in this situation, that's more important than the law itself not existing. And yes, for someone to come in and say, I'm not going to prosecute Karen Reed, or, okay, look, we tried it once, we'll move on. And yeah, we don't have that here. And then the same thing for judges. Do you want Bev Canoni as your judge? Are you pleased with her results here? I know there was that bench trial she had like a couple months ago where she acquitted the lady. And I know Bev has a career as, doing defense work and whatnot. But watching her on the stage when the world was watching was not impressive to me. I don't want her as a judge. Sorry, she may be really good every other time, but when it would like really, really mattered, and like the chips are down for every client, but this was about as big as it gets. And for whatever reason, she couldn't do the right thing. Sorry, we need a different judge. And I think that people should be allowed to say, no, we want a different judge. That's one of the reasons why I don't like, for you guys, you have to get appointed. Well, now you have to fix the governor's office.
Yeah.
And think about
Not
how hard that's to fix. Yeah.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing too is we have to go ahead.
Yeah, you can fix the dog catcher. And here, like every judge, you can alter a county election. Yeah, if I had to go worry about the governor in Columbus, God, I mean, like, it's going to be damn near impossible.
Well, I try to tell everybody, control what you can control. District attorney is a local county race, and by all stretch of the imagination, it's a small race. It's contained to a certain area. It's finding qualified candidates. Listen, when we talk about this, okay, this is done. This trial is over. Karen is free. But also, what is next? The next step is completely removing these people from leadership roles. You have to.
Yeah.
The thing here is in Massachusetts, people have voter fatigue. They feel like, what, we just got through a presidential election. We're kind of done. We saw it here. We saw the lowest voter turnout for our local town election than we've ever had, right? And it was, 6 months after after we had our presidential election. So people are just like, I've done my part. I'm all set. People in Norfolk County need to stay fired up. They need to support a candidate that has come out against, Michael Morrissey and what he has done with this case, retrying Karen Reed twice. I mean, the word on the street was if they got a hung jury, they were going to go a third time. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. Yeah. So people have to seal the deal here. Finish the job. It's not just this. It's you've got to keep going, or else it'll happen to you or someone you know.
Yeah, and I think it's, for people in Norfolk County, they need to realize Karen Reed was season 1. Like, there's okay, great. Karen, you guys got Karen Reed out of trouble and out of danger. The bad guys are still there. Like, we have to take care of the bad guys. Like, season, it's a trilogy. Like, we got to finish it. Like, there's still so much more to do, and I hope people see it through. But I understand what you're saying. Like, everybody's like, "Yay, we won!" and we all go home. And like, well, we're hoping this never happens again. It's like that's not a good policy. We got to see this one through.
Yeah, the players are still playing.
Yeah,
the players are still playing. There's still work to do. And listen, for those of us who follow the Karen Reed case and Aiden's case is still going to trial. This has to do with witness intimidation. So we need to see that one through as well. He was just vindicated in another case related to this, where he was, found not guilty of violating a restraining order relating to the ex-girlfriend or what I don't like to say ex-girlfriend, but the fake victim, so to speak. I mean, it's so unbelievably incestuous, these people and the parties involved, and all doing the wrong thing, manipulating the law in ways that benefit them and to attack their adversaries. Like I said earlier, I've experienced that personally, where a political opponent of mine leveraged restraining orders and police departments to try to throw me in jail. I mean, I'm a 49-year-old mother of 3. I have no record. I have no speeding tickets, and I was in court and arraigned twice, because I spoke up and people didn't like what I had to say. Again, had to hope you had a good district attorney who saw through it. You had to hope you had a good ADA who could tell that story to the DA, but over that time, it's 18 months of, dragging your name in the papers and going through this whole thing. So again, like my own personal experience is, bad people who are in leadership roles can use their power to go after people they don't like, to try to shut them up and be quiet. I feel now it's going to be harder to do in Massachusetts, though, with this army of people that were there supporting Karen. They would get behind another situation if called upon. And as long as Aiden Carney is out there writing the stories and people like me writing these stories, we'll continue to shine a spotlight on corruption in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and like you said, 18 months just to get through it. And in the meantime, sure, you're fine, you're out of it, but you had to sit there for 18 months to deal with it. And
I was on bail, so I was always worried I was going to actually get picked up. They did to Aiden, they got him. And there's always every time there's a court appearance, your name's in the paper, and the mental toll is just, and you're wondering, like, I'm just sitting here and I'm going, how are these people able to get away with it? And it's like, they're elected. They're the most powerful people in my town. Who's going to stop them? You know what I mean? It happens everywhere. It really does.
Yeah. And this is something, I guess, and if you don't mind me asking about this, since you went through it and you said like 18 months of being out on bond, this is something my clients have mentioned to me before. You get done, like, whatever it is you're doing, your kid does something really cool. You're like, oh my gosh, that's really neat and sweet or whatever. And then when you have that 1 second of kind of like just downtime, it's in the back of your head of like, that's right there. All this is still right there on top of you. And, those, the moments you're not able to think about it are the great things, but there's not enough stuff to fill your mind all the time. So it does come back. It's always sitting right there, waving at you, and you have to, it just sits on you. It just sits in your mind, and it doesn't ever go away. I mean, is that a fair way to look at it, or is that how you felt at times?
Well, by default, I don't like to let my enemies know that they ever really had me in that position.
Okay. Fair enough.
But however, to be completely honest with you, attorney, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I cried a lot. I mean, my mental health was at a real low. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. You know, it seemed like I couldn't fight these people, and I didn't have any of the people behind me that I have today. At that time, I was a singular voice opposing local politicians. I, you know, felt things were not right, so I spoke up, and I didn't have anybody. It's only over the past 5 years that I've kind of built this following of people that were finally able to feel strength in numbers and stand up for things themselves. But back then, yeah, it was a very difficult time, tough time for my marriage. I had little kids at the time, a lot younger than they are now, 11 years old. It was tough. I mean, and not only that, but it was embarrassing. You know, I'm in a courtroom and, I've come full circle. Now I'm in courtrooms reporting on cases like this. So, but at the time, yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot. If I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been far more confident. But listen, if you're a fearful person for breaking the law or going to jail, you're scared. You don't know what to say or what to do. I didn't have the financial means to pay for my own attorney. I had a court appointed attorney who had a huge caseload. It was a really dark time. I say that that built me to get through pretty much anything now. And, I feel like that's kind of where Aiden and I also really can kind of like bond in a lot of ways. I certainly never had to go to jail, but I was very close multiple times. I really sympathized with him. I've always believed in him. It's just, again, people in power who want to shut up people that are opposing what they're doing is a very dangerous situation to be in. For some people, and it takes a lot of guts to do it. I'm happy to do it. I feel empowered now, especially with people like Aiden out there that have that no fear. You know what I mean? It empowers me to do more of my work. So yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to go through that again, but there's always a chance that could happen. I mean, you asked me, were these cops or anybody pushing back on me? Not this time, but does that mean that I'm completely free from it? Probably not. But I don't know. I feel like I'm stronger and I can take on anything, I think.
I was gonna say, from listening like you and Turtleboy talk, I can definitely tell, I'm not gonna say you're gonna sound like the guys in The Sopranos, but you're gonna like, yeah, oh wow, you got it. Oh wow, handcuffs. Okay, great. Right. Do your thing. I'll be on Twitter before, like this tweet will be so hot, you have no idea what's gonna happen to you.
I don't want to go to jail, but I will go to jail.
I get that. Yeah. It's like
I'm just gonna plug my phone in. Hold on.
Oh, sure.
There we go.
Now, and I guess this is something I was going to ask you, but you kind of addressed it. Obviously, this has changed your views on like the criminal justice system, the law, and policing. But before all this happened, how did you kind of view the police? How did you kind of view justice? How did you kind of view all that before this entire thing happened?
I'm a rule follower, and I always felt if you follow the rules, nothing bad ever happens to you. And I've learned from both Karen's case and Aiden's case and my own cases that is not true. It is not true. You can follow the rules, never break the rules. You can do whatever it is that you think is right, and it means nothing if you have people in power that have nefarious intentions and want to stay in power or want something. In my case, they wanted me to shut up so that they can, continue to control our town. In Aiden's case, they wanted him to shut up so they wouldn't talk about the Karen Reed case. And in Karen's case, they wanted her to shut up and just take the blame so that the real murderers could go free. So for me, it's definitely eye-opening. I mean, I can pass on to my children that you still want to follow the rules. You still want to be law-abiding citizens, but I don't trust anybody. I would never trust anybody now in the court system. I'm highly suspicious. I ask a ton of questions. I need to authenticate everything. I mean, listen, I was supposed to be able to be in the courtroom for the verdict. I'll just give you this example. And they had 10 reporters in there for the verdict, right? And last year it was supposed to be 10. And on the day of the verdict, they ended up letting more reporters in to kind of accommodate everybody. And there were 14 of us in there. As many people were there, they let in there. This time around, nope, we're not going to do this. The day of, I'm hearing they might let you in. So even though I wasn't one of the 10, stick around, we might let you in. I'm trying to get upstairs and there's a court officer that will not let me up. And I am making my case. And I am like, no, I was told go upstairs. Ted Daniel was also one of the reporters that was kind of told, yes, you might be able to get in. So we're hovering around and they're telling us, this guy's telling us, nope, get downstairs. You're not going. And I'm pushing it as far as I can. I know I'm right. I know that I can get in there. And this guy in a uniform with a badge is telling me I can't. And I'm like, do I make this about me right now? What do I do? I'm going to miss this moment. I've been here this whole time, 2 years. Finally, I just said, I'm not going to push it. It's not about me right now. I'm just not going to push it. Afterwards, after everything is all said and done, that court officer found me and apologized and said that he had been misinformed and that he should have been able to let me upstairs. And I was crying and he said, I want you to know I feel bad. And you know what? While I appreciated that, I still don't know if I could trust him. I don't know if he was told to keep me out of there. I don't know if there was misinformation. I have no idea. All I know is I didn't get in and I'm pretty salty about it. So for me, I fight for everything until, well, I mean, my general motto for life is like everything is negotiable. So I will question and fight for everything. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
Yeah, no, and I can only imagine. Yeah, he's like, I'm sorry. Well, no, you're like, okay, well, are you easily manipulated? And you're like, you're a reporter trying to get in. You're not just some random Yahoo. He clearly knows who you are.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, so are you just that easily you're fed BS that clearly doesn't make sense, or are you in on it? And it's hard to tell who's involved in this, who's not. I mean, I think David Yannetti and Bob Alessi mentioned this when they were sitting down in that like room waiting when Hank started talking about the text messages. Oh, they were told, oh, you guys don't need to worry about that. Don't worry about that hearing. And all of a sudden they hear the name Karen Reed come up and it's, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. They're like, what the fuck? And they go run upstairs. I mean, there's so much of that. It's, can you attribute that to regular people? Like, somebody who was just told something and they're relaying information, maybe. But given how this whole thing has turned out, there's either everybody really sucks at their job and there's a bunch of like oopsie poopsies, or it just happens to be these are all very well timed accidents.
I need receipts for everything. I need receipts for everything. Like our randomizer, for example, like, and even getting access to the courtroom, we never saw that randomizer. We never saw them actually. We have no idea. It's one of the most frustrating things in this whole trial is, we have to wait every week for someone to send us an email and say our name. I mean, I was in the courtroom twice out of all the weeks. You know what I mean? How does this happen? I need receipts. I give receipts for all my stories. If I say a story, there was a story not too long ago. I had two really credible sources. It's about this little league in Massachusetts where there's some leadership corruption and an OnlyFans account is involved. And, did I trust the two sources? 100%, right?
Story.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I took it down. It wasn't all out there. I just kind of teased it a little bit. And I took it down and I said, you know what? I don't have the receipts that I need. I usually like to see some screenshots. I usually like to see some public records request emails. And so everybody was upset and we want it now. And I said, it's going to be worth the wait. And I was just at an event last week in Boston and a man came over, introduced himself. And I said, hi, it's nice to meet you. And he handed me a manila envelope or a folder. And in it were the receipts. Out of the movies. And then he walked out and he was like, it's nice to meet you. And he left. And, my friend was with me as an assistant and she goes, what was that? And I was like, I opened it up and I was like, it's the receipts. It's what I needed. So I like receipts on everything. I don't always trust the words of things. I need to back it up. I don't trust anybody in anything anymore. I want to authenticate everything.
Okay. Are you going to try to FOIA the randomizer? Like who did it? What actually did they use? Did you just download some randomizer off the internet? Can I try it? I'm kind of curious. Are you going to look into that at all? Or is that just, because it would help for the future to prepare kind of in case there's more games being played, I guess.
Well, the word you used, future, is really what I'm focusing on. There are other cases that I will want to cover that may generate national attention, like the Sandra Birchmore case and the Brian Walsh case. And so for that reason, I'm actually working on comprising an email to send to, the public information office, giving my experience and asking for reform when it comes to how they select press members for these cases. I know it's like the least of their worries when it comes to a trial where someone's being accused of murder. I get that. However, I'm earning a living through this job, and it's also a public service, is reporting to the public about what we're viewing there. So there needs to be some more transparency. There needs to be organization. Did it evolve from last year into this year? Sure, but that wasn't saying much. I say it all the time. It was like the Hunger Games out in front of that courthouse last year.
No.
People throwing chairs around, men putting their hands on me. You got people sitting outside having Uber deliver them food because they can't leave their chairs. I mean, it's crazy. I really do feel like they didn't care about the press, and I need to advocate for us in the future. So to answer your question, public records request, how it was done in the back, I'm not sure we'll ever see any real answers. The motivation I have now is to fix the process so it works better for us in the future.
Well, no, I really commend you for that. That you realize, I got to make sure this is right, not only for me but for everybody else, and people understand they can start demanding and holding some accountability too going forward. And I
The
guess
other thing too, really quickly, I do want to say, attorney,
yeah.
is the disparity between independent journalists and mainstream media is pretty palpable when you're in these places. There's a lot of money, there's equipment, there's a lot of stuff going on, and this is really about evening the field for independent journalists, which we know readers want more of. And so we've really got to kind of scrape our way to the top here and make sure we're fighting for equal access as well.
Yeah, well, and I know you mentioned the guy Ted. I know he's one of the Boston reporters. I know
Yep.
he's been kind of covering this and is a little more prominent as far as things are concerned in this whole story. So yeah, I mean, even somebody like him, normally you'd think that guy, that court officer, he knows who that guy is. He's like, I see this dude on TV all the time.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, they have an advantage of they can get to mosey on in there. And I was my chat was some people are from the Massachusetts area, were able to tell me who those people were in the back each time. And yeah, a lot of them were the local press, the local newspaper. And yeah, they have that they're given a little more slack there, and it just seemed really suspicious every time. It was them, it was them, it was them. And then I wouldn't,
Well,
the
and then at the
frustration for
end,
me would be a
attorney,
lot.
too. At the end, as we start getting closer to, closing arguments and jury deliberations and a verdict, you have people coming who hadn't been here at all. So the Associated Press shows up the last week. You have Inside Edition show up for the first time. Dateline has always had someone there, but they all come out. So there's more of them. I mean, I get it, but hard pill for those of us who have been doing the grunt work, this whole time, getting edged out by, the AP sending someone who hasn't been here the whole time. I mean, I guess I could say it's not fair, but life's not fair, I guess.
Well, it's not fair, but I don't think there's anything wrong to say, look at these guys, they're coming in glory hounding at the end, and everybody, day one of trial is boring. Day 15. Who do I remember what happened day 15? No, nobody does. Nobody, and it was just the grind and the slog. And then, everybody wants to be, everybody wants to be the reporter down the field, 2 minutes to go. And I thought it was interesting though. I think it was you or Turtleboy published on Twitter the list of people who actually got randomized. It was like the Associated Press. I'm like, wait, when did they, all of a sudden they just happen to want to show up and they get on the list? Now, that was kind of funny how that worked out.
Yeah, we saw it happen last year, so we kind of anticipated it again. Again, we had a little bit of an upgrade from last year where there was no seat saving and waiting in line. The randomizer eliminated that, but no transparency with the randomizer. And we've just got to, we've got to try to, I don't know, work on making this a better process.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like it's getting better, but yeah, it sounds like you guys are going to be able to get it there. And Jess, I don't know how much more time you have. I do have a couple questions, and this is these are some of the ones I wanted to ask. So I know you've spoken with some of Karen Reed's family, and I assume at this point you've had a chance to speak to Karen at this point. How are they kind of doing at this point overall, without kind of spilling tea for stories and all that you guys are probably working on? Are they doing okay so far?
So I haven't spoken with Karen yet.
Okay.
I haven't. And I'm not working on any stories with the family at all. I'm in a weird position. I live very close to the Reeds. They're in the town over from me. My daughter goes to school in Dighton where they live. And I've got to know Janet Reed over the 2 trials. And, I've never asked them for an interview. It doesn't feel right to me. I did a joint interview with Brian for Nathan, and that was at Nathan's request. Happy to do that.
Okay.
But I did get to go to dinner with Bill and Janet and Nathan. Not this past Saturday, the Saturday before. What a difference! And I've seen them out and been out with them before during the trial, in between the last trial. First of all, they just look so much more relaxed, happier. They handle fans with such grace. So they're, people come over all the time and ask for photos and pictures, and they oblige. I've had some really interesting, chats with Mr. Reed himself. And, he's mentioned a couple things that really put some stuff into perspective for me. And, Nathan seems very also relaxed. He did a little bit of a mini press tour post-trial and kind of made the rounds. And I think that was really to just make sure he buttoned some things up. And, I believe Karen is enjoying some vacation time from what I can tell on Facebook or some social media posts. Well deserved. There's still a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. There's obviously going to be a civil trial or case that's currently happening. I don't know if they're ever going to completely heal. When I asked Nathan, like, how do you kind of move past this, or, what's next? He said life doesn't really, go back to the way it was. It's changed forever.
Well, and that's actually what I was going to ask you is, do they ever feel like there'll be a normal again? Or is this kind of like, this is their normal for them now?
It's a different normal. I mean, I remember one time I was speaking to Nathan at court, and, it was getting a little emotional. Again, like, I never was jockeying for a story with these people. I really wanted to just, I don't know. I was very lucky that they talked to me and trusted me. You know what I mean? So, we would talk about restaurants and our favorite restaurants. A lot of them were the same. And anyway, so one time Nathan was talking about what had happened in their family and why they're so close. And Nathan, Karen, and their sister Elizabeth, none of them have children amongst the 3 of them. And so, Nathan said that their family was exceptionally close because as they got older, they didn't have things like their own individual families or, say, sports or dance recitals to go to. So it was always like, if the parents called and said, you guys want to go to dinner, they were free. And so they were actually very, very close prior to this. And as he's telling me that and kind of putting it all in perspective, I started to get a little choked up. And I said, it makes me sad that they kind of shattered that family, unit. And without missing a beat, he went, they didn't shatter it. We're actually stronger. We're closer. I believed him in that moment. And so the Reeds are an exceptional family. It's a very unique, close group of family. And I think a lot of times, if this were a different family unit, a different family, a different group, how would that person have fared through, these 2 trials? Very differently. So I think they're very strong. I think they're going to adjust to life as it is going forward. And obviously just the day-to-day life, no more court, no more having to drive there, no more having to be present. They can eat, they can relax, they can sleep in. I remember one time Karen telling me, if you're having an off day and you're not feeling great at work, you call out of work, you're sick. She's like, I can never pull out of this. I have to be here every day. Obviously this trial, she had one day where she was sick and she needed to rest. But I mean, I think adjusting to a life where you don't have to show up to court every day is a start. But there's a new normal for them, and it's always going to be a new normal. It's going to be different forever.
Well, I will say it Karen especially though, she's a surprisingly tough person. A lot of people would have cracked by this point already, going not only through the first trial, but the ordeal of everybody out there hounding her, and how constantly when you listen to the interviews she gave in the one documentary, she acknowledges, she's like, it kind of felt like it was driving her crazy. She was always worried about how she's looking, how she's portraying herself, because no matter what she does, it's always being used to look bad one way or another. And she's kept strong through the whole thing, and I was very impressed that she kept that poise. I mean, and I know Paula mentioned it. She was very, at first it was off-putting, and she thought it was arrogance, and no, it's just somebody who's defiant, and somebody who's just like, this isn't gonna break me, I'm not phased. And I thought that was very, very impressive to see out of that, because I've had trials where I've had, like, guys off the street, and they think they're the most gangsters of the gangsters, and the minute the prosecutor turns around and says, ladies and gentlemen, that's the bad man, and that finger points at them, and you can hear them gulp. And I'm
right.
So I thought it was very impressive to see, Karen able to hang tight like that.
I think, well, by no stretch of the imagination am I a feminist. As a conservative woman, I was happy to be a stay-at-home mother for many years and raise my family. However, I believe, Karen's similar in age to me. There's a generation here where we're not afraid to say what's on our mind. We're not afraid to advocate for ourselves or defend ourselves. And what I also love is that the majority of her supporters were women, and they flocked to her. So just like juror number 11, maybe at first glance you look and say, well, she's got a great body, and she's got great hair, and she's got great clothes, and maybe I don't look that way. And so some women might find that as a threat or jealousy. Somehow, some way, through the screen and through her, interactions outside the courthouse, she was able to show her personality and who she really is. She's a warm, welcoming, girly girl. And, like, these women flocked to that. They wanted to be a part of that. She inspired them to advocate for themselves. And that's another thing that Janet Reed had told me. This is like a characteristic of Karen. She has always advocated for herself in every other part of her life. She's a strong, outspoken woman. She had a very hands-on approach to this case and this defense. We all want to be like that. I wish I was like that 5 years ago when I was getting dragged through the court system. I didn't know then what I know now. So I love what she's done, for the women who have kind of like rallied around her. There's men too, I get it. But, the majority are women. And it's through all demographics who really just absolutely love her strength. And it's commendable for sure.
And before I get, I don't want to forget about this. When you mentioned Nathan Reed went on with Brian, you were talking about LTL Media, right?
Yes.
Brian?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because guys, that is an interview that's out there. Nathan Reed, Karen's brother, was on, and they had a nice interview. It was like probably about a week and a half ago. If you guys do want to see it, it actually is, it's pretty good stuff on there. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I thought it was really well done. And I guess I think I think I'll kind of just end on this. I don't think that they're ever going to be, absent somebody admitting to everything that happened. I don't think the real perpetrators are ever going to be, like, held accountable, just simply because if I'm their defense attorney, I'll say, look, we spent how many years saying it was Karen Reed? We went all in on this. We did 2 trials. We paid millions of dollars to prove it was her, and now it's not her, and now it's this other person. So I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But does the community, like, overall at this point, I know people already had their suspicions of who it is and what happened. As this trial unfolded, the second trial, has that really galvanized more and more of the community to say, like, okay, look, we really know who did this now? Or is it still kind of like, it depends who you ask?
I think it's too soon post-trial for anybody to focus on moving on to the next step here. I think we are all still kind of basking in the win. It's still new. I mean, I went back and watched just today. I went back and watched the verdict again and made myself cry for no reason. I mean, it's still, I think, too new. I actually personally believe we will find out what happened. I don't believe it's going to be a, who killed Kennedy, grassy knoll theory. I mean, I think we will know eventually. I have some theories on how and why. I think, people will talk eventually. These are This is a group of people who like to go out and drink. And after
Yes.
time goes on, people are going to be out drinking at bars and they're going to be chatting and talking, or relationships may falter, or
Yes.
it's not going to stay hidden forever. Listen, I
Mhm.
know one thing, it wasn't Karen Reed. And I know the people in that house know how John
Mhm.
died, and eventually that will come out. Whether those people will be brought to justice and serve jail time, I don't know. But I think we will get confirmation on what we believe, which is, I believe Brian Higgins is the one that actually killed John O'Keefe. And I think, we'll eventually have those questions answered. How soon? I don't know.
Hmm. Well, and I think you're right. Yes, eventually we'll find out. And yes, what better place to keep a secret from a bunch of people who drink all the time and appear to be absolute scumbags, because certainly they won't manipulate and lie to each other at some point. So, couldn't happen to nicer people as far as, eventually when they turn. So
I
I
agree.
really I think it'll be very, their suffering will be just it'll be palpable, and it'll just be so, their tears will be amazing at that point. And and hopefully at that point it also gives closure to what actually happened to John O'Keefe. But like I said, I don't, sadly, I just don't think they're going to see man's justice, which, is a bummer. But there's God's, God's justice is always out there, and that's, I tell people in that chat, karma sorts itself out, and God's justice is always out there. So, people who do what, everybody, they know what they did, and eventually they're gonna have to deal with it. So, hopefully we're around to see that, though, as I guess all I can say at this point.
I agree with you.
So, um, yeah. Other than that, do you have anything else big coming up that you're working on, that you want people to take an interest in or look around at on your Substack at all?
I mean, I've had so many things that have been put on the back burner while I was covering the
I
Reed trial. So I have, to tipsters out there, I promise I'm going to get to everything. I mean, currently Massachusetts is in the middle of a migrant crisis. I mean, I just
Yeah.
went to a hotel shelter that closed officially yesterday,
Hmm.
and I wrote a story on the Substack about that, about the last family there. I mean, there's actually quite a few stories. We had the death of an 18-year-old high school student last year in New
Hmm.
Bedford, Massachusetts, who was actually having a relationship with an employee of the school, and they were
Ooh.
together in a vehicle when it crashed. He died, she did not. And the
Oh,
family has sued the school. This is a story that I broke. It
wow.
finally got some traction. Libs of TikTok had picked it up earlier this year, but there's some sort of legal stuff that's going on with that. So I've got to catch everybody up to date on that as well. The family obviously is taking legal action against the school district,
Sure.
for basically covering up this relationship and not doing anything about it.
Hmm.
So that, and then unfortunately, that seems to be kind of like an epidemic in Massachusetts, whether it's countrywide, I don't know, but teachers having relationships with students in
Yeah.
Massachusetts, if you're 16 years old or older, the age of consent, the teachers can have relationships with students and there's
Hmm.
no recourse. I mean,
Oh, really?
there's no law being broken.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So in my area, we have,
Oh.
teachers that have relationships, they get found out, they just move on to another school.
Oh.
And until we change legislation here, these teachers will be able to have consenting relationships with students. We have a real
Hmm.
problem with that here, especially in Bristol County. So I'm working on that, working on more political stories. We have a gubernatorial election next year, and we've already got candidates. And again, like I said, it all comes down to the ballot box and who you're putting in leadership roles. So
Hmm.
working for, new candidates and getting them elected is important to me too.
Also, I forgot to mention this. One of my last night, somebody in my chat mentioned to ask you about, the ballot harvesting stuff. You've been, you broke open some information on
Yeah.
that happening.
Yes.
Does that look like you're going to
So
be able to get that drawn out in the line if it kind of goes away, or is it just they're going to get a little sneakier with it, do you think?
Um, so, again, my lines all cross politics and
Hmm.
corruption. My thing here is this, and I try to tell everybody. So I'm starting a show. I used to have a radio show for a couple of years, and I put that away while I did journalism and writing. And now it's kind of time to blend those things together so I can do this and talk a little bit more and
Hmm.
get things going. My thing here is, transparency in government, transparency in elections is better for everybody. It's better for the people, but it's also better for the people in charge, because then you're not subjected to scrutiny or false allegations. Everybody should want transparency everywhere. And so continuing to point out when there isn't transparency and make changes. In Somerset, I showed that there were some ballots that were being, put in a vehicle and driven alone, right? This time for this election, we had a police officer transport ballots. So again, it's
Well, that's
about
awesome.
showing. Yeah, so it's about showing what happened, saying, hey, this isn't working, or this is a mistake, and then making change, and just getting those little wins under my belt, and also inspiring other people. I need more me's in this state. I need like 15 more Jessica Machados, because I've got public records requests, I've got tips, I've got stories, we've got elections. I need more people to do this kind of work. But it wouldn't be for people supporting my independent journalism, my Substack subscribers. I have people that just donate to my Venmo to say, hey, here's lunch or coffee. It all adds up so that I don't have to go back to working, a regular job, and I can continue to do this. So support independent journalists. It's really the most important thing, so I can do this work, honestly.
No. And I will say, I know you said that sounds like a little win. That's a really big win, especially for the people in your town.
Yes.
That helps them know that their vote mattered, and the most direct level of government they actually have an influence on, they're actually being able to influence it. So no, I think that's a massive win. I think that's a really cool win to get. You don't have to worry about, where in your town they're not going to worry about, we found a box of ballots sitting in a car somewhere. Isn't that kind of a coincidence?
We said that this was after that, that whole situation, and we had another ballot issue here. I said, we will most likely guarantee to have the safest ballots, during our past election, because they knew all eyes were on them. We knew that they knew we would be watching them, and we put in public records requests for cameras of town hall. They knew. So, again, I don't really care how we get there, as long as we get there. I'm not afraid to be that person. But again, like I said, attorney, we need people everywhere to kind of do the same thing and speak up. And don't be afraid, gather a couple of friends together, go to a selectman meeting or a city council meeting, and ask questions publicly in the realm of the public, where they can't hide, or not respond to an email. Get in front of these politicians and ask them questions. And you know what? When you can't do that and you can't donate money to the right candidates, go hold a sign for the right one. You know what? If everybody who is out there supporting Karen Reed instead held a sign for the person running against Michael Morrissey, maybe he won't get elected next year.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's just that crowd alone that was out in front of the courthouse. All those people, they all have, just those people standing on a street corner all over Norfolk County. People be like, "Oh my God, it's
Let's
that's all it would take.
Take off those pink shirts and give them signs for whoever's running against them, and say, go do the exact same thing. We've got an election to win."
Yeah. No, that's all it takes, guys. Just a little bit of footwork will go a long way. So, well, Jess, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing how what you're covering. Also look forward to covering Turtleboy.
Yes. He has a hearing coming up in July.
Yeah, I think he has it Monday, actually. The 7th, I think, coming up. Yeah. And guys, remember, Turtleboy is another part of this saga that, that's season 2. Like, Karen got out great, but now Turtleboy is there, and Turtleboy is being punished for doing the work and helping lay the foundation for Karen to get acquitted. And now he's got to fight, and he's fighting for his life. So don't forget about them. Don't forget about people like Jess. If you guys don't live in Massachusetts, there are people like Jess everywhere you live. Don't be afraid to support them. Show them some love. However you can do to support them. That can help. You can make those changes where you live. So definitely take advantage of it. And that's really it for me. So I got some super chats and some goofy questions to get to, but you're all good to take off if you want to in the meantime. I'm sure my chat's got a lot of smart ass comments. Like, they keep on what the only thing, I guess, can you say sidebar for them?
Sidebar.
There you go, chat. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate it. So thank you again,
you got
Jess.
it.
And Have a great night. Happy 4th of July. Take care.
Attorney, thanks for having me on. Say hi to all your viewers for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Jess. Have a great night. Guys, Jess Machado over here, Jess Machado Show on Substack, and you can find her over on Twitter. And yeah, she said the thing for you guys. She said the thing for you. There you go. There you go. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. And we're going to get to it. I think overall, guys, thank you for kind of being housebroken when, with some of the stuff out there, especially the birthday stuff. Really quick, I need to hold on, refresh, because I don't think this is got everything here. So give me 1 second. I need to refresh this. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right, guys. Sorry, we're back. We're back. Can you guys shit on the rugs now? Yes, by all means do so. By all means do so. Little Jen says, fancy outfit for the interview. I had court today, and I just didn't have a chance to change. So, been a little busy today. So, yeah, you guys can do whatever now. I appreciate you guys being behaved. And the one of you that got timed out, suffer. Come on now. You're going to have to suffer that one. You know who you are. I don't like doing that, but remember, when it comes to Somalia rules, who controls Somalia? Mohammed Farah Aidid. I am Mohammed Farah Aidid. I am the warlord of Somalia. So remember that. Beautiful Waterfall says, am I the only person who isn't angry about the Kohberger plea deal? Maybe, but I mean, the families are upset, but once again, it's the families, it's not their job to approve things. They're getting told what's happening. It's the reality on the ground. So, but I know a lot of people are sad. They wanted to see the trial. We wanted to see what happened, how this all came about. What was their proof? Moonchild Pink is a new member. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it very, very much. Unhung Hero says, happy birthday, Sean. Well, thank you. It's not my birthday. If you're new, chat. EDW Raptor says, can we get a suspender stab for a great interview and a Karen Reed victory? Yeah, sure. There you go. Permaseal finishing chat. When you need it permanently sealed, get Permaseal. Says, you guys have John DePetro. We have Aaron M. Holt. Oh, God. Oh, God. Imagine John DePetro coming into the Dabbleverse. That'd be hilarious. EL444 for $1.99. Thank you very much for being here. It says, thank you for hosting Jess. She's all heart and smarts. Yes. And it's interesting. I will say it's refreshing to see that because, yeah, with these, the institutional journalists, it's a story to cover. The buy-in from, Jess and Turtleboy, and especially for Jess. I knew she had some sort of a legal issue. I didn't realize it was like an 18-month ordeal. Yeah, I mean, and I think it helps give you that perspective of like, oh my God, I didn't like this, and I don't want to see other people in that position. I think it's really cool about how hard she's fighting, knowing that's happened to her. Unhung Hero gifted 5 subs. And chat, when you gift those 5 subs, you are doing your part to help eliminate the grays out here. I don't think you guys understand it. The grays need to be dealt with. And when you do this, you are helping take care of the grays and addressing the problems that are out there. And I don't think you guys get it. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to do. But I do thank you, EDW, for your support and your generosity. There are, as we get to this here, and why is it not working? I tried to. It's frustrating. I just clicked on it, and it's like, what do you want me to do? But guys, when you support this channel with memberships, when you do your part to make America green again, because that's what we're doing here. We are making America green again. You are helping crush the growth. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing every day. You are stomping on those grays. You are just crushing them under your boot heel. So when you do this, when you give subs, when you become a member yourself, you're doing God's work and you are helping deal with the gray menace out there. And guys, tell Maddie thank you again for his stuff out there. Benjamin Lewis gifted 1 membership. Thank you, Benjamin Lewis. He gifted another 1 membership, which means that's Dose. As many dubs as Nick Ricada. He got 2 gifted memberships out there. David, making law simple. David for 49 says, I miss Bev. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Johan Noxos for $5 says, given how shady this whole affair was, if I were convicted of something in Massachusetts, I'd be peeling ASAP and hope they all get investigated. Yeah, well, remember the Brian Walsh trial, or it's Walshy or Walsh. Right now, Yuri Buchanan's involved in that, and Lieutenant Fanning, and all these MSP dudes. Tully's involved in it, and it sounds like Buchanan just fucked it all up. Like, there's some massive problems. They just had like a big suppression hearing on it, and Buchanan just got his ass chewed apart. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It'll be very interesting. And it's by an attorney who just he won the bench trial in front of Judge Cannoni, actually, earlier this year. EDW Raptor says, great interview, Sean. Well, thank you. Jefferson Post says, good interview, attorney. I know, I think Jess forgot my name, and that's okay. That's okay. It all works. Johan says, I'm still not calling you attorney, Sean Blaga. That's okay. I appreciate it. Jefferson Post says, he's been a member for 10 months. Thank you for the support, man. And says, could Kohlberger's judge require details for a plea? Yes. The plea, you have to do an allocution. You do have to talk about what happened. Now, here's what I mentioned this before. You know, Brian doesn't have to come in there and say, like, okay, I opened the window and I snuck in and I found girl number 1 and I pulled out my knife and I went stabby, stab, 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 stab. He's going to say, did you murder person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, person number 4? Yes. Where did you do it? I did it at this house in Moscow. When did you do it? I did it this night. Was it in this county? Was it in the state of Idaho? Yes. How did you do it? I broke in through the window. I mean, it's a very basic recitation of facts, because that's all he has to show is, did you kill them unlawfully? Yes. Did you have any lawful justification? Nope. That's all it's going to take. He doesn't have to sit there and give a detailed explanation. Now, the prosecutors might give it, because what'll happen typically after that is the prosecutors will generally stand up and say, Your Honor, had this matter gone to trial, the state of Idaho would have been able to prove that on or about such and such date in such and such place, Brian Kohlberger did knowingly, cause the unlawful death, cause harm, causing the death of, and he read their names off. He did commit burglary. And they'll say more specifically, Your Honor, they'll give a more detailed explanation, but it's not going to be a super in-depth one, but it'll be we might learn some stuff. But a lot of it, I think we're going to have to learn through, it's going to be weird how we learn stuff. Tootly Pip, who's been a member for 4 months, says, I miss Paul. Paul gone now. I think we'll see Paul again. Remember, Karen has her civil trial, and I'm sure Paul's going to show up for Turtleboy's thing. But yes, for Paul, war over for Paul now. Paul Indian without battle. Paul shall become nomad. All right. And I understand this tie probably doesn't go well with the shirt, but I picked it out this morning and I was like, fuck it. It's a tie I grabbed. EDW Raptor gifting 5 subs. And Johan gifting 5 more subs, chat. Let's fucking go. Big support, everybody. Guys, I appreciate your support out there. You guys are doing great. Thank you so much for the support. Guys, thank you for being here tonight. I really thought it was really important to kind of get that side of things. I think it was really learning, from the people who are on the ground kind of covering this. I think it's been very helpful in that regard. Do you think FBI is going after cops involved with Karen Reed? No. Nah, the FBI is not getting, like, as much as I'd like to tell you the feds are going to knock on some doors, and the day after the not guilties came in, Buchanan, it's like the Sopranos, that episode of the Sopranos where the feds come arrest everybody, and it's like, and Buchanan opens the door and it's just like, FBI, you're under arrest. That's not going to happen. As much as I'd love for it to happen, I don't see it. I don't see it. So, did I pick clothes in the dark? No, but I had like a bunch of ties in a pile, and I was like, yeah, this will work. I was in this juvenile court, not the fucking, Milan fashion show. Panzer is correct. You do not need to be convicted to be pardoned. That is correct. Although maybe in some states that might be different, but generally speaking, in the general context, that's not the case. But certain states may have different rules now. I think, for example, in Georgia, you do have to be convicted. And you do have to have finished your sentence before you're able to get a pardon. Kathy. Guys, Kathy, you're a realtor in Jersey, and that means New Jersey. Remember, not the Channel Islands. If you're in the Channel Islands and you want to sell your property, you better find someone else. Kathy can't help you. I don't think she's licensed to go out that far. I'm sure she would take that commission, though, because I'm sure it'd be a very nice, big old fat commission on that one. But, guys, if you're in New Jersey or you're wanting to go to New Jersey, buying, selling, whatever your real estate needs are, Kathy is your realtor in New Jersey. Kathy, it's good to see you, by the way. For $20, saying happy birthday, Sean. Well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much. 007 says the tie is good. Well, thank you. Access, will the Kohlberger DNA report be available to the public? I'd like to see it. All depends. I don't know Idaho's records laws. Maybe. Yes. Yes, we're only 50 subs away from the Sean will pick a better colored tie goal. Yes. Or I'll be like, Phil, I'll wear it as a hat. That's the goal, chat. 50 more subs, I'll wear my tie as a hat. Oh. After the Walsh fiasco, the feds might come back. Yeah, but I think they already know that. I think they already know what's going on. Stacey says, anybody know the Canadian national anthem? Like, you mean like, Oh Canada? Like, I know they changed it now to be more like very friendly to the natives and stuff, but like, yeah, Oh Canada, we got to learn that as kids because we could go play hockey and like you'd hear it all the time. Because even in like hockey games, little kids, you play both national anthems and you learn the words to it. Let's see here. Yeah, Diddy's not getting a pardon. No. Johan says, I left New Jersey a decade ago. I'm never moving back. I'll live in a cardboard box first. Yes, buy a tie for your tie. Winston for $2 says, happy birthday, Sean, and happy Canada Day. Yes, it is Canada Day, so happy Canada stuff out there. Are those suspenders a birthday present? They look nice. No, these are, I have blue, I bought a new pack, so I had to buy a new pack. So I was they kind of get a little, it's not that they get worn out, but these have like little clasp on them. And you bump around into things and they kind of get worn out and bent and broken. And every once in a while you have to get new ones. So, EDW Raptor's been a member for 22 months. Thank you, EDW Raptor. Left you speechless. Afix says 100. Good to see you, by the way, man. 100 subs and you put a feather in it and go woo 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 around the room. Maybe I'll dress like Sitting Bull. Okay. No one sings the new version. Well, they did at that hockey game where we beat their ass. USA beat them in the Canada Center in Montreal. Beat that ass. Let me see here. Which Canada, the French Canada or the other one? I will say, Oh Canada and French is actually it kind of slaps. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting because I remember at a hockey camp and we went to Ontario for a hockey camp and there were some kids there from Quebec And, they would sing it in, because we had a couple, like, there was, like, a game or two and, like, went through all of that. And, like, those kids could sing in French. It's like, actually, it's kind of not bad sounding. It's kind of like when you hear, like, do you hear the people sing and you hear it in French? You're like, that slaps. That slaps. Speaking of Canada, where the fuck is Keno Casino? They come back tomorrow. So the class give up. Yeah, well, my class don't give up. My class also have like these little they have like these little teeth in them. And they they have like little teeth that bite down and help bite down. And yeah, they kind of get sometimes like if you bump into things, and just after a while, they don't last forever. So like once a year, like not even once a year, like every almost year and a half, 2 years, I have to get new ones, and this is just kind of one of those times. So this is one of those times. Yes, Amateur Conquest. Remember 18 months. Thank you for that support. Yes, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. And if you guys didn't know this, Bobby Bonilla is a retired baseball player, and he gets paid $1 million every year by the New York Mets as part of a contract where he took a buyout. And it continues to 2035. Instead of paying $5 million, they bought out his contract, and he basically, for 35 years, they have to pay him $1 million, and they would rather do that than have just paid him the $5 million with some interest. It's a very retarded thing that they did, but it is a really hilarious thing. How it all worked out. It's very funny how it all worked out. He's 70. He'll be 72 years old when he still receives it. He's still going to get paid. He signed a $20 million contract, and it was and to get out of it, his attorney or his agent negotiated a 25-year payment plan with 8% interest. So, he basically gets like $1 million every fucking year. And he's gotten it for a long ass time. It's fucking hilarious. It is fucking hilarious. Let's see here. Half Irish says we used to have to sing both versions in school. Really? Yes, the reminder that Florida has beaten the Oilers 2 times running now. Yes. Yes, Whiskey Chick is correct. In Canada, the French version of "Oh Canada" ends with "Protect our freedom and rights." Yes. Yes. They are the Quebecois are, unique in that regard. Phil, guys, you guys see Phil over on Twitter making all the funny comps out there. He's been a member for 5 months. Says, Safa trolls, Safa. Tenox says, France, you mean Belgium minor. The Belgians aren't real people. You gotta tell me the Walloons are actually, they're a real group of people? No, they're not. They're made up. They're nonsense. Yes, cope. The Walloonians can cope. And so could the Flemish. Afix is a new member. Thank you, Afix, for the support. I appreciate it. Robot Glock says, oh no, is one less trial to grift off of. Yeah, I know. But remember, we haven't, we don't use all the trials all the time. We don't do tons of trials, so it all works out. Afix gifting 10 subs. Thank you for the support and your generosity. And guys, when you do those subs, it just means we're going all the way. Going all the way, chat. And just like to the moon, it's like Clyde Coin. We are going all the way to the moon. Look at Clyde. Such a cute little puppy. You just look at him. He's so cute. I mean, how can you say no to somebody like that? We are going all the way, chat. And some of you are like, where's the sound? I'm like, there's no sound in space. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Chasarian France is still 13.5 million over a decade. Oh, it's more than that. He's been getting paid since 2011. He's been getting paid since 2011. So that's the difference thing here. That's different. That's how it works. So there's other things like Bobby, like there's another thing too. Bobby Bonilla, he has another deferred money agreement with the Mets and the Baltimore Orioles. He gets $500,000 a year, and that began in 2004. So it's more like he's getting $1 million every year since 2011. Like he's gotten some good money out of this. Yeah. He got it deferred, not bought out. Yeah. They refused to buy it out. And it gave them payroll flexibility. So Winston saying, if you had to, would you rather live in Canada or the UK? Also, if there are so many conservatives in Massachusetts, why is it so liberal? Is it gerrymandering? Yeah, it is. I mean, that's a big problem in Massachusetts. It's also just there's a ton of libs. And also, well, Jess doesn't seem that way because I've heard her talk amongst other things, and I've heard Turtleboy talk. They're pretty, like, Turtleboy's pretty, I think Turtleboy's a mega guy. The average, the Democrat or the Republican in Massachusetts is not always necessarily the Republican like elsewhere. And I get it. They're, the Western Massachusetts people like, we're not the same people. I get it. You're not. But it's kind of like if you get a Republican in Connecticut, like who are you really getting? But yes, there is a massive Democrat vote. I mean, it doesn't help that Massachusetts corrupt as shit too. So, yeah. So, yes, the Mets are paying, 20 million to avoid 5 million. Yep. Great information. Great financial literacy. So, but yeah, what freedom? But anyways, getting back to this question though, would I rather live in Canada or the UK? I mean, I don't know. There aren't any Muslim rape gangs running around Canada yet, knock on wood. So, like, they have a Pajit problem in both places, and it's kind of a mess everywhere. And in Canada, there's a civil war among the Indians, like that's brewing over the Sikhs. But like other than that, like I guess Canada, because you could like try to disappear into Canada. But like both places suck. Cost of living is insane in both places, and the problem with Britain is it's so fucking small. So I guess I'd probably rather live in Canada if I had to choose. Derna for $5 saying there are two different Canadas, French Canada and bullshit America. Yeah, well, French Canada is not really much better than bullshit America. Like it's not really much better. They just say tabernacle all the time. Jefferson Post says sometimes a guy in Massachusetts is a libertarian and he just suffers. He suffers. Suffers. Is that how you'd say it? Is that how you'd say it if you're Ethan Ralph is from Boston? Just suffer horse. I don't know how you'd say it. I don't know if that's good, but yeah. It sounds like somebody's a libertarian in Massachusetts. Like, sorry, brother. Sorry to hear about it. My sympathies go out to you guys that are stuck out there. Also, guys, today or yesterday was actually the 12th anniversary of the Yarnell Mountain Fire, the Granite Mountain Fire, with the Yarnell Hotshots. If you guys remember, that was the entire firefighting team, except for like one guy. They got caught in a fire and burned to death. So something to keep in mind. There's some kind of somber things out there this week. So just keep that in mind. If you guys have never seen the movie Only the Brave, really fucking gets you in the feels. Really fucking gets you in the feels, and it's pretty. Even though you know what happens to him at the end, it's actually it's a pretty good movie. Pretty good movie, especially for Josh Brolin. I think he's a tool a lot. Let's see. Belgium is a place you go to race and then you leave. Yes, that's the way I understand it. When do we get to name the Gators at the Ice Alcatraz? That would be funny. You could sponsor the Gators. Did you see that Corey Richards pulled a bunch of new charges? No. That's one of the things we're gonna have to get into now, especially Brian Koberger over. I messaged Kirsha and let her know that Brian Koberger pled, and she's like, no. So if you guys get the chance and Foxu comes on soon, tell her, put some F's in the chats for her, sorry about Brian Koberger. Astronaut Clyde's a good boy. Yes, he is always a good boy. Let's see here. The Mets owner $1 million is chump change. It is, yes. Can we send Aaron a link so we can come discuss the viscosity of Nick's goo? Yeah. What was this, Aaron? What was the salt content like? When's Billy Wagner going to be going to trial? There's some appellate stuff that's still being decided, so I don't know the answer to that. But once we do, we're going to start getting into Billy Wagner because we have time now on that. But yes, Dave, we are working on that. Yes, even the conservatives in Canada are on the left. Yeah. Yes, the BTK killer enjoyed his allocution a little too much. Well, that's because he's a fucking psychopath. Can you live next to Runkle? Well, that's the thing. That's the thing there. Half-Fire says we have Runkle choose Canada. Well, yeah, I would. All right. Let's paint some models tonight. We might work on the helicopter a little bit more, and we actually might start painting it, pieces of it. But what I have to do is I have to pay the water bill real quick, and I'll be right back, and we'll kind of figure some stuff out. So hold it tight. All right, chat, we're back. I just thought about it. 2.0 is not feeling well tonight, so we probably won't be able to paint. We can do some more assembly on parts, though. And there's like some control panels and stuff I think we can paint. But you were kind of limited tonight. Like I said, 2.0 is not feeling 100%, so I don't want to wake her up or whatever. Mimi says, didn't know you were still around or had a following. Great. Well, thank you. Unless you're talking to Jess. I don't know. Let's see here. What's the one where the guy told he burned his way out? Man Gulch. And that was in Montana. And that was back in like 1949. That was another disaster for wildland firefighting and upland firefighting. A bunch of them got burned to death. And the leader of their group, while these guys were trying to flee, he sat there and started lighting a fire in the grass. And he burned out a zone to protect himself. He got really injured, but he survived. And had they stayed with him, they all probably would have lived. But yes, that's one of the other ways you survive is you burn out all the fuel around you. And you make a big enough arc and a big enough thing where the fire won't come in because there's nothing to burn that you can kind of survive. So, let's see here. What are you guys talking about? Dennis Rader was a nut job. Yeah, he was. Corey Richards got 25 charges of mortgage fraud. Jesus. That's a lot. Is that a euphemism? Pay the water bill? Yes. I did. EW Raptor, it sounds like hell if you're paying a water bill every stream. Yeah, well. Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry. And after this, after the stream's over, I gotta send Hillary a fax. So yeah, 2.0, I think she's having a migraine. She'll be okay. But thank you very much, guys. I will tell her to feel better. Let's see here. Do I have mini K-bar sheets to leave somewhere? No. No. Jeff would be shocked about Koberger. I think he would too. I think Jeff really would have been scared or surprised, shocked about Koberger. I think so too. I think Jeff probably was expecting it to go all the way. Yeah, the Canadian wildfires, they suck because like even where I'm at, every couple of days, the past week or so, there's been some really nasty haze. Like not only like when you're driving by the lake and you can see it, but even when you're in it a little bit, you can see there's this smoky haze everywhere. So you know what fixes Clyde and migraines? Clyde snuggles. Oh, don't worry. Clyde is snuggling the shit out of her right now. And he's sitting with her and he's rubbing up on her and trying to help make her feel better. So yes, rest in peace, Jeff. Truly, an original. I miss Jeff. I think we all do. I miss Jeff too. But remember, guys, it's those good memories you got. It's the good memories, and also he's still got his channel, so you can go back and see him. But just keep all the funny things that happened. You remember. That's really hold on to those. Let's see here. Yes, in Diddy's trial, the jury has not agreed on the racketeering, but they did agree on the other charges, and the judge told them to keep going. So yeah, there's some movement in the Diddy trial. We don't know for sure what's going to happen yet, but I think we can entirely agree that he's probably getting convicted. I doubt they've acquitted him. So Brad says there's still a hole where Jeff was. Well, I think that's a good thing. I wouldn't want Jeff to be replaced. I wouldn't want somebody to become the new Jeff. I'd like for us to do our own things and, we do our own stuff. And then, yeah, like that's maybe how something happens. But I'm I don't want another Jeff because the Jeff we had, you're not going to be able to beat. So I think it's a good thing there's a hole there because that shows you how important he was. It's a hole you can't fill. It's a hole you can't replace. I think that is a thing that's a testament to him. So stand up, let us see that tie. Well, here you go. Here's the tie. There you go. Caleb saying they wouldn't survive the flight. Really? Well, I didn't know that. I mean, I know they're older, but oof, that would be rough on them. So they did get a home. I know they were kind of like in a foster or like at the veterinarians, but they were being well taken care of. But they actually are getting a home together. That's good. That makes me feel better. I'm happy for them then. A stand-up goal? Well, no, we're not having a stand-up goal. Take your shirt off. Well, only for your mom. Only for your mom, Chris. Yes, we have Aaron for radio law and hearing. Jesus. Bulldogs have respiratory issues in general, and they're like 7. Okay. And they're with Connor's uncle now. Good. Like I said, I know they were at like the vet. The vet was caring for him and boarding him, and the pictures you saw, they were kind of like out in like a doggy daycare thing. So, the dogs are living at the shelter or living in a shelter. Connor's uncle is a vet, so he's looking out for them. Okay, well that's good. All right. Kind of stinks. I kind of wish they just had like a regular house with somebody that could care for him. So Connor's uncle's a veterinarian, but that's good. Brewberry says, thanks, attorney. My mom's been lonely for a while since my dad left and didn't come back. Oh, jeez. My cat's name is Karen saying been watching Lori Daybell stuff. Well, yeah, she actually gave an interview recently, so that's it's interesting. We might watch that coming up. Might watch it this weekend. Although it'll depend because it's 4th of July, so we all got shit we're doing and having fun. So trying to keep our fingers, all our fingers. So guys, with that, I think we are I think we're all done. Stace says spill the tea. What tea? I don't know what tea. Yes, Nate Eaton was on the Lawyer Nota. Yeah. And he's the guy who interviewed Lori Daybell, which is interesting. It's Peter's got some, Peter and some of these guys have had some phenomenal fucking interviews lined up. I'd like to think we didn't I'd like to think your boy didn't do bad himself. I'd like to think we've done some good ones here too. But yeah, no, there have been some very phenomenal ones that are out there. Yes, if you pick a bunch of sparklers, well, if you take a bunch of sparklers and you tape them up and you put them in a metal pipe and you light them, it shoots out like it's like a forest flame. It's pretty good. And if you do too many of them, you can make what's called a sparkler bomb, and it explodes and kills people. So don't do that. Am I entering the hot dog eating competition? No. Yes, Peter also had on Judge Carol Erskine. Was very good. What's a film canister? Are you being a smart ass? Like the little black things where you put a roll of film in. Winston says, I know you goof around a lot and troll, but no, you don't. I don't really have a problem with you. I just appreciate you being here. I generally mean this. You and Andrea are my favorite law tubers. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. Just to comment alone, I appreciate very, very much. But thank you. Larry had Karen Civil attorney on. Wow. May have to watch that. Jim is streaming on the 5th. Hell yeah. You mean weed holders, those canisters? You mean a weed canister? Okay. You guys are awful. All right, chat. I think we're going to land the plane here. It's about time we got to land this. It's 10 o'clock. I got to eat dinner still and everything. So, yeah. Thank you again to Jess. I appreciate it. And yes, Formula One this weekend. I forgot there was Formula One this past weekend as well. Oops. Sorry, chat. I forgot to apologize for that. Like, I'm sitting there talking to 2.0 and like it's mid-afternoon already. And I'm just like, we were sitting there and I'm like, there was a race today, wasn't it? She's like, yep. And I'm like, fuck. So, sorry, chat. Sorry. Yes, the British GP is this weekend. Yep. It's going to be a good one. Trump wants us, hold on. You only missed Max getting speared by Kimmy. Well, that's perfect. I like it. Kirsch is one of my favorite news tubers and one of my favorite VTubers. Seeing the collab you guys would have been nice to see. We're still going to collab. We might like whatever else is out there to watch. So we'll see. There's something else we could talk about. We might sit there and talk about the Ethan Klein shit. That'll be fucking hilarious. I don't know. Something. So with that said, chat, we are going to land the plane. If we do some model stuff, I'll be back on in a minute here. I got to figure out what we can do and we can work on. And yeah, guys, Karen is over and the new sagas begin. So don't forget about them. Don't forget all the people involved. And make sure did I get all super chats? Yeah, I think I got this one. Yes, I did. All right, you guys. So everybody take care. Is there gonna fat lawyer VTuber avatar when? Well, yeah, Kirsha is a Boston. Yeah, she's from the Massachusetts area. Yeah, And then Matthew's case would be nice. Yeah. Yep. So yes, Alan Jackson will be on Turtleboy Saturday night. That is actually one I am looking forward to watching myself. Can you get Clyde to sponsor an F1 car? I wish I had tens of millions of dollars. Because, like there's guys like Richard Mille, they have their name on the car. I would just put down Clyde the dog and just put it on the side of the fucking car. In a little spot. That would be so goddamn funny if that happened. Just Clyde the dog. Just written in a little spot on like the halo or on the side of the car. That would just be great. Not even Clyde coin, just Clyde the dog. That would be absolutely amazing. So, with that said, chat, good night to everybody. You guys all take care of yourselves. And remember, until next time, just because you did it does not mean you're guilty. It still means Karen Reed. Brian Kober, apparently not. And Diddy, probably not. But hey, Karen won. That's good. 1 for 3 ain't bad, chat. So you guys take care. And good night, guys. I'll see you guys probably here in a little bit, chat. Okay, where's that?
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had while drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and even talking the law. Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops. Even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. But please talk to a local attorney. Was that the fat guy Rick hated yelled at? Why, yes it was, he even knows he's fat. For all this fun and more, there's one place to go. Here on Sean Martin's Potentially Criminal Show.
Okay. I'm not going to go that far. But some Karens.